Hello and welcome to FPL Mate, your best mate for fantasy Premier League content for the 2023-24 season. My name is Dan, and Game Week 5 is upon us, which means we've got to do a buy, sell, keep, avoid video looking at those transfer trends. So if you join this one and you're looking forward to the return of FPL, do make sure you drop a like and subscribe if you're new around here, and a quick look at the rules, just to remind us, because it's been a couple of weeks. So buys are players you probably don't have but should consider bringing in. Sells are players you probably have but should consider removing. Keeps are players you might be thinking about removing, but I think you should keep them. And avoids are players that are pretty hyped up right now, but I think they are potential traps that should be avoided. Let's cast our minds all the way back to Game Week 4 to see how I got on last week. So, in general, it was another meh week. 10 out of 16 correct in the one game week kind of range here, which is not really ideal, but it was a hard game week, you know, particularly for those buys and keeps, because aside from Erling Haaland and maybe Heung-min Son, if you had him, no one really scored any points, and it's very difficult to predict the likes of Billy Gilmore, Odsonne Edouard, and Kurt Zouma were going to score good FPL points this week. A difficult game week indeed, but we did smash the avoid, so I was happy about that one. I'm always targeting to make sure I can get the avoids right, because it's very embarrassing when I say avoid a player and then they go score a load of points. But a difficult game week, but still an okay score if you just look at that one game week range. And I do still feel like some players in the buy section, like Edison, Udogie, Madison, Wissa, still think they've got a lot good stuff going forward, and the same kind of thing with those keeps as well. So yeah, it's okay. It's okay as long as we kind of accept the fact that there wasn't many points, particularly in the defensive and goalkeeper areas. No clean sheets other than Forest and Liverpool. So, for Game Week 5, we need to look at some new buys. And we're going to start off, actually, with the 2 avoids from last week. Yes, as I always say, guys, just because an avoid is an avoid for one game week, it doesn't mean they're always going to be an avoid. And after some poor fixtures from Leno against City and Cash against Liverpool, we are back in business for the new game week with some much better fixtures. So, Leno has got a beautiful run of fixtures here. He's already, like, making a crazy amount of saves and picking up those bonus points. Now, if we can add a clean sheet or two to the madness, that would be good as well, but clean sheets are kind of not really happening right now, so we do need to try and look at other avenues of getting FPL points, and save points and bonus points are going to be part of how we do that. I do expect Fulham to improve slightly in defence, just because Palhinha is now back and in that team, and he's going to be able to create a bit more of a strong defence behind him. You know, he's a very, very good defensive player. Him and Leno, the 2 best defensive players in that Fulham team, and when they're both in the team at the same time, we are going to see the odd clean sheet, particularly against some of these easier fixtures like Luton, Crystal Palace and Sheffield United, and you never know, just like Nottingham Forest did, could even get a clean sheet against Chelsea as well. So Leno, I like him for the upcoming run. Matty Cash is my other pick. Again, we're looking for attacking returns rather than necessarily clean sheets, but definitely there are some opportunities with the Crystal Palace and Wolves games. Those definitely are opportunities for clean sheets for any team, including Aston Villa, to be fair. 2 goals so far this season for Cash. He's playing very, very advanced. We're seeing that Aston Villa are kind of operating with some really, really high up the pitch fullbacks, which is definitely working pretty well for them at times, but also kind of leaving them exposed against some of the tougher teams maybe. But we haven't really got any super tough teams like we've seen before, like no Newcastles anymore, no Liverpools anymore. We've got some good fixtures coming up in actually the long term for Aston Villa. So if you're planning on holding a player for the long term, Matty Cash could be your guy. Definitely looking good in the attacking kind of numbers here with 1.76 XG, 9 shots so far this season. Not too many defenders are going to do better than that. For our attackers, Heung-min Son is obviously going to be the buy, and I don't think this one is a knee-jerk. It's not like Sterling from the week before. It's different, because Son, when he plays as a central striker, is a whole new man. And aside from maybe the Sheffield United game, I think beyond that, against Arsenal, Liverpool, Luton, and then Fulham after that, I do think we're going to see Son playing definitely as the central striker. Against Sheffield United, I'm kind of on the fence whether he will be that central striker or not. But what we've seen so far this season from Son is that in the Ange Postecoglou system, playing as a left winger really does not play into Son's strengths. You're really playing as more of a support player, and that's not what his game's all about. I think Son is very comparable to Kyogo, who Ange used to manage at Celtic. Kind of similar kind of models of player, kind of profiles of player. Son is a little bit better, of course, and I feel like if he gets opportunities to score in those striker areas, he's definitely going to score them. We know he's a quality finisher, and we have seen that he could very well be on penalties as well. So lots of positive signs to be taken from Son, even though it's only been one good game week. If this is a transition to a new, more permanent situation, if you want to get ahead of the crowd and get a out-of-position midfielder who's actually a striker, then this is definitely the way to do it. A really, really good pick. And we got Gabriel Jesus, who I've thrown in as the buy as well. So yeah, a little bit more differential this one, which I think is kind of interesting. But I thought I'd put my neck on the line here and say, Gabriel Jesus, I expect him to come back into this Arsenal team and play pretty much every single game. That's what we've seen from him in the past. When Jesus is fit, he plays, he starts. He is Arsenal's number 9. He is Arsenal's primary first choice striker. So we're going to see a lot more game time from him. He's already seen him score a goal in his just 15 minutes of game time since returning from injury. That's really, really impressive. A good start for him to get out of the start there. But we've got some good fixtures. Everton, Spurs, Bournemouth. There's going to be goals in all of these games, and you will imagine that Jesus is going to be heavily involved in all of these games and all of these goals. So very, very impressive stuff. You get a super differential, and I feel like he could be a real difference maker in your team compared to a lot of other people who might be too nervous to go for Jesus. Pickford is probably a sell, isn't he? Against Arsenal next, it's not an ideal fixture, and we've seen time and time again that Pickford is just not doing the business. It's just turned out to be a pretty poor pick in general. Maybe we've got the benefit of hindsight there, but we do need to accept our L's sometimes, and that might involve selling Pickford, to be fair. So yeah, maybe moving him on to a different goalkeeper might be the play this week. Obviously, I've mentioned Leno as a nice replacement. That's probably the way I would go. And I'm also going to say sell Manchester United defenders, probably in general, and you can maybe even include Andre Onana in that one. We've got a lot of defensive injuries at Manchester United at the moment, and I'm just a little bit worried for them. Brighton up next. We know they're a brilliant attack right now, and I just feel like the Manchester United, it's just not looking good at the club right now, and I feel like although there's a lot of promise in the attack, the same can't really be said about the defence. So we might see a switch of Manchester United becoming a stronger attack and actually a weaker defence, particularly in the short term whilst there are some injuries. So Martinez and any other Manchester United defender that you might have in your team might have to depart. Let's put Rodrigo in the sell section. He is obviously a very highly owned player after a couple of, I'm going to say it, fluky returns. Let's be honest. Once again, we saw in game week 4 that even though it was a good fixture for Manchester City, Rodrigo was just not involved in anything. Didn't take a single shot in that game. I think he only made one key pass during that game as well. Same as what we saw in game week 2. So be under no illusion. Rodrigo is an amazing, brilliant defensive midfielder. Perhaps even the best defensive midfielder in world football, but he is still a defensive midfielder, and that just does not work for FPL. It's not the way FPL is built. It doesn't benefit these kind of players, and as such, I wouldn't expect to see any more goal returns from him moving forward, other than like the odd random one. But we don't want that. We want predictable results. We want to predict the future, and with so many great midfielders to go for right now, there's just no place for Rodrigo, so he's gonna have to be a sell. As is João Pedro, who really hasn't impressed since his opening game week where he scored a penalty. Aside from that one penalty, what has he really done? He missed a very, very big chance in game week 1 as well. He's missed the other odd chance here and there as well, but not really been too dangerous. So with him potentially being rotation risk as well, I'm not sure De Zerbi really fancies João Pedro just yet. I feel like he is a player that you can actually sell. So yeah, there's some other forwards to go for right now for sure. There's loads of good ones. Jesus, Alvarez, you can go back in on Wissa. I still think like Nicholas Jackson is an okay pick there as well. Ollie Watkins, etc. We've got Awaniyi. We can go on and on. There's loads of forward options right now, and João Pedro is not even in the top 5, probably not even in the top 10 forwards to go for right now. Maybe even Carlton Morris might be a pretty easy like switch from one 5.5 to another. Maybe think about that one. Keep Edison, yes, no clean sheets in his last 2, but 2 clean sheets in his last 4. I'm hoping that Manchester City can get back to clean sheets very soon, because I have doubled up on my Manchester City defensive keeps here. They're still by far the best defence in the Premier League, so you are going to get clean sheets from them. And they've only conceded 2 goals all season. 2 goals conceded in 4 games. That is a phenomenal start to the season. It really, really is. And we have got some fixtures where you would imagine they would keep clean sheets. Forest, Wolverhampton Wanderers, these are good opportunities for clean sheets. So I would be holding on to those Manchester City defenders, whether that's Edison or Gavardiol. A few people worried about Gavardiol maybe getting rotated. Hey, it's Manchester City. Welcome to picking Manchester City players. It's just what happens. In general, I do think Gavardiol is going to come straight back into the starting 11 in Game Week 5. So I wouldn't worry about rotation this game week. Usually when you see a player miss the previous game, often it means that they're going to start the next game. It's just being rotated out and then straight back in again. That's the joy of rotation. It comes around, doesn't it? So yeah, there we go. Keep those Manchester City defensive players. Bruno Fernandes has got to be a keep as well. In fact, if I'm choosing between keeping one of Rashford and Fernandes, I would prefer to keep Fernandes. But to be honest, I prefer to keep both of them. I'm really not comfortable selling either of those two guys. And I know I've said this a lot. Bruno Fernandes' numbers are amazing. They're so good. But I'm sure you're sick of hearing that from me now. So I'm going to try it with a different angle this game week. Yes, he's got great numbers, but just watch him play. It's not just a case of him having good underlying numbers. If you watch him play, he is everywhere. He is creating everything. He is shooting from everywhere. In the box, outside the box, still super attacking, on set pieces. You know, he's got to be on penalties. Like, how many times this season have we seen, your game week kind of dictated by who scores a penalty in your team? Bruno Fernandes is the penalty taker for Manchester United, so you are going to benefit from having him if Manchester United get a penalty, which they will at some point, surely. Fernandes could either be playing as an attacking midfielder or as a right winger, because we're not expecting to see Anthony in the team for quite some time, so Fernandes will play a little bit more advanced. Also, we've got Amrabat now, who is going to give a little bit more defensive cover to allow Fernandes to push up the pitch, and we've got, finally, Højlund is going to be starting for Manchester United, which again is going to benefit Fernandes. So whatever you've seen from Fernandes so far, there are positive signs that will give him better chances to get attacking returns, and maybe a little bit more of what we saw in Game Week 3 against Nottingham Forest. We might see that from Fernandes going forward in some fixtures against some defences that aren't really too good. Brighton have conceded a lot of chances this season. Burnley have been awful defensively, maybe not quite as bad as Luton, but they're kind of in the same kind of area in terms of poor defences. So in that sense, Fernandes, definitely a player who I'd be looking to keep. I'd probably be looking to keep Rashford as well. You know, Rashford against Burnley could do what Son did against Burnley. Similar kind of moulds of players. I guess Rashford is what Manchester United fans hope that they hope that he can become a Son kind of player, but maybe he's not quite there. One day, perhaps. Also got Jackson here as a keep. Again, his numbers are good. There's a lot of positive signs from Jackson, and historically, he hasn't been a poor finisher. So I think Jackson owners have been really unlucky. I mean, I'm not a Jackson owner myself, but I definitely do sympathise with Jackson owners because I've seen some of the things that have happened. Maybe he's lacking a little bit of confidence right now. I'm not sure. But half of the battle is getting the opportunities, and looking at these fixtures in the next 4, there will be more opportunities for Jackson, and it's not like they have any other strikers right now that can come in and replace him necessarily. So in that sense, Jackson, I do feel like he's a player you can definitely keep. He's not a priority sell at all. Neither is Fernandes, neither is Rashford. So actually a lot of the most popular players that a lot of people are selling right now, I actually don't think you need to. They're fine to keep. And finally, the ever-controversial avoids. This week, we're going to go for Alphonse Areola against Manchester City next. I think it's a pretty straightforward thing that we don't buy defensive players when they're about to play the best attack in the league by some distance. In fact, West Ham's defensive numbers actually haven't been so great this season so far, and we haven't actually seen them keep a clean sheet yet. Now, that's not to say Areola is a bad pick. If you're on a wild card, for example, I definitely would consider going for Areola maybe instead of Turner, but there's not too much in it. I maybe would slightly prefer Turner, to be fair. I do think he's going to hold his place in the Nottingham Forest team. But Areola, like, he's not a bad pick necessarily, but I wouldn't waste a transfer on a player who's about to play Manchester City, Liverpool, and then Newcastle in a couple of weeks as well. There's not really a place for him. If you really want to get Areola at some point, and you're not on a wild card, maybe just waiting until that Sheffield United game could be the answer. Would not be going for Areola this week. I don't think he's any better than a Pickford or a Turner or whoever else you have right now is just as likely to score the same amount of points, or if not more, than Areola when we do have this super tough fixture. And Malo Gusto, one of the most popular defensive transfers of the week. Loads of people buying this guy right now, but unfortunately, Reece James is going to be back from injury in Game Week 5, which is going to put Gusto back on the bench. Maybe not 100% this game week, but if not, the following game week, we're going to see Gusto kind of, eliminated as an FPL option, at least until Reece James gets injured again. But for now, yeah, it's not going to work, unfortunately. So this cheap, too good to be true kind of defender here is indeed too good to be true. And if it makes you feel any better, his numbers aren't particularly good either. He just had the benefit of passing to Sterling a couple of times, and Sterling did all of his magic, which gave him the points. But I guess being on the same side of the pitch as Sterling is an advantage in itself. But yes, if you're going for Gusto now, you have missed the boat. If you are already owned Gusto, congratulations, you've smashed it. You got ahead of the crowd. The new crowd, you're too late. You've missed the boat. You've missed your chance. You don't have a time machine. You can't get the Gusto points from the past. He's going to be back on the bench. Another West Ham player against Man City is going to go on the avoid list. No surprise, really, is it? Yeah, I'm going to put Ward-Prowse in here. I do feel like that there is just a kind of situation here where a lot of people are picking Ward-Prowse because he's got some good returns so far. 1 goal, 3 assists. A massive overperformance, by the way, on his underlying numbers. Just 0.64 XG and 0.96 XA. That's not really very high, but he still is a good pick. He's still a good pick in general, but you don't want to pick him up when there are so many other great midfield options. I can't stress that enough. There is so many midfielders, I just want to have them all, but Ward-Prowse is not a player who makes that list of midfielders that I want. So, yeah, it's not going to be a pick for me. I would just be leaving him. I'd be leaving Bowen. Just leave them at the door. Don't need them right now. Tough fixtures. Wait until the fixtures get a little bit better, and maybe we can think about West Ham players a little bit more once again. And avoid Nketiah. As we mentioned earlier, Gabriel Jesus is back. Nketiah's time is numbered. It is limited in terms of being the main number 9 striker for Arsenal. It's not going to happen for much longer. He's going to be gone, unfortunately. So, you're going to have to avoid him. If you own him already, then you're probably going to have to sell him very soon as well. So yeah, do not go for Nketiah anymore. His time is done. Jesus is back. It's Jesus era now from this point onwards. So just in summary, guys, loads of midfielders we want to go for right now, so take your pick. They're all amazing, but Heung-min Son is definitely the pick of the bunch right now. But I wouldn't be moving players that you actually like out in order to accommodate him. If you've got Rashfords and Fernandez's and Saka's, these are still good picks, and I don't think you need to make the transfer. And I think that's another big point for this game week. There's a lot of players that people are selling, like Nicholas Jackson as well, but do you really need to sell him? Is it worth a transfer? Are you actually improving your team? I don't know. Maybe you are, maybe you feel strongly that you are, maybe you don't. But if you are kind of on the fence with your transfer, it's often the best thing to do is to just not make the transfer. Wait, monitor it one more game week and make the decision after that. So that's going to be my advice for this game week, and those are going to be my picks and non-picks for game week 5. Thanks so much for watching today's video, guys. If you did enjoy this one, please do drop a like. Make sure you subscribe if you are new around here as well. And if you want to check out Fantasy Football Hub, they are running a deal right now. You can get a free trial for 7 days. You get full access to all of the Fantasy Football Hub tools, including the OptaStats tool, which I used to build this video today. We use OptaStats from the Fantasy Football Hub website to gather all of the information to share with you guys today. So do make sure you go check that out. Link at the top of the description. But aside from that, thanks so much for watching once again. 100 experts video coming out tomorrow. Aside from that, we'll see you later, mates. Bye bye.